Hi, good day, everyone. I am beyond excited to be here to talk with you. We are going to have a conversation about integration, automation, and in particular, SnapLogic in our technology. I'm Michael Nixon, VP of Product Marketing, and about 1/4 of the way through, I will be joined by my colleague, Mark Gibbs, who's our VP of Product Management. Now, today's event is an exciting event. We've had a record number of attendees registered for this event, but you know what? I'm not going to assume all of you are familiar with SnapLogic and our technology. So for the first few minutes, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our technology, take it down a level from the conversations, great conversations you've heard from Gaurav, you've heard from Dale, you've heard from Betsy, and you've heard from Jim. So let's open the doors and discuss what SnapLogic is all about. So first of all, obviously, we're an integration platform. We have over 600 connectors ready for you out of the box so that you can integrate all the applications that you love. Now, not only application integration, we're also a data integration platform. And you can take data from any number of sources, any endpoints, and move it into any database you would want or data repository that you would want. And I don't care what you call it. You can call it a data lake, you can call it a data warehouse, you can call it a lake house, you can call it a dream house as far as I'm concerned. But we can give you the freedom to move your data and consolidate it, or have the freedom to distribute the data amongst multiple sources, or I should say multiple destination endpoints. Global. SnapLogic gives you a global footprint. We are the only company that presents a separation of our control layer, which is where all the metadata is maintained, all of the management controls and administration is maintained, while there's a separate plane for our data. So what this means is you can put your data in your own infrastructure, or you can put it up in the cloud with us. And this means anywhere you have infrastructure, you can deploy SnapLogic. So your infrastructure globally. Next, our designer, the SnapLogic designer, which is the interface into our intelligent integration platform, right? What you see here in front of you is a real application being pulled together, a small one, but a real integration. You can see it is about point and click, drag and drop. So you select among the connectors you would want, you put it on your designer canvas, and voila, guess what? If you have our AI activated, all of the AI you've heard about, which we refer to as Iris AI, is a AI assisted integration. I should say a AI integration assistant. It will recommend the next step, much like when you type into your browser will predict the next set of words to take you to a particular URL. If that browser predicted the right URL, you're just going to tap through it and you're at your site. So the same thing with SnapLogic. It provides you the next step recommendation for that pipeline. You can choose to ignore it, or you can choose to adopt it. And it will continue to do that throughout your build. So we were the pioneers of this technology, and it's embedded as an active part of our component and our platform. So next, choose your method for which you want to build your integration. You can go with the point and click, drag and drop, or as I like to say, drag and snap approach, which is highly visual. We're all about the visual. We're about the visual because it's easy. And that is what this event is all about, making it easy for integration. So as I was saying, you can choose to do the designer first, and then when your pipeline is done, you expose the APIs. Or you can choose to do an API design first, and then it can be translated into a pipeline. But either way, you can create your custom applications from here. So not just pipelines for integrations, but you can create full out business processes. And this is how it's done on the SnapLogic platform. So you've heard the architecture referenced a few times. So let's talk about that in a little bit more detail. We allow you to intelligently automate enterprise integrations and business processes. And you heard from Betsy on how valuable that is. It takes integration platforms up to the next level to be able to integrate and create complete business processes across the enterprise. This is what we mean when we say enterprise scalability. It's not just about the performance, but being able to scale business processes, being able to scale the number of users that are on your platform. And this is where we believe we excel. So I'll tell a little bit more about our architecture in a few moments, but I just wanted to give you a sense for what the SnapLogic environment is all about. Now, let's take a few moments maybe to talk about the industry. The industry itself is gotten to be very hot of recent. You've seen a lot of activity from various vendors raising funding, and so all of a sudden, integration is a hot thing. And as I was saying before, this particular event for us is all about how we make it easy for you to build your integrations, not just for the technologists in your companies, but also the business people, the individuals who are not the specialists, and we'll get more into that. So we're all about making difficult enterprise-wide integration and automation easy. By doing so, you empower your teams. When that team is IT, your IT team is more productive. They're more productive because they have more power at their fingertips to either do the job at hand, or they have the ability to empower others, like business teams. Business teams are effective because they have a tool now that they can adopt or adapt within their environment and build their own integrations. You don't have to be a developer. This is a point where I would like to quote one of our customers who is here today in our virtual event. Her name is Carrie Craig. She is the IT director with WD-40 company. You know WD-40, right? The spray lubricant, right? In her own words, right? Like many companies, we do not have our own developer team. So we have to build integrations. And the reason why they like SnapLogic is because they can bring an individual straight out of college, put them on the SnapLogic platform, and with just a little bit of a ramp up, they're productive. This is what we mean about making integration easy. So let's talk about the industry in general. How do we compare? How do you look at SnapLogic vis-a-vis other potential players? Now, I'm not going to call players out by name, but perhaps by category. So let's just start with the legacy integration vendors. These are the guys who have been around for 20 plus years, maybe even as long as 30 years. They started at a time when you were moving complete data sets. You're replicating complete data sets, an entire database, if you will. Surely those type of platforms are quite scalable in terms of being an enterprise solution, but they might not be so easy. They may not be so easy because it takes a specialist to orchestrate that environment. What about work-oriented or task-oriented types of integration platforms? Again, a very effective platform. They focus on one particular thing, typically in a department, right? Maybe they do a point-to-point integration, but they are unable to do multi-point integrations. And when I say unable, I mean unable to do it in an easy manner. So if you need to scale that type of platform, chances are you'll have to engage an IT person who'll do it on your behalf. So that's not what we mean when we think enterprise scalability. So we don't think they rank high in that regard, though they may be easy to use. Then you have the new age of RPAs, robotic process automation types of platforms. You heard Gaurav allude to it a little bit earlier. These types of platforms are certainly gaining in popularity, and I see them going up the food chain, frankly, into the integration platform space. But are they really the right play for an enterprise that wishes to have a full end-to-end type of business process? Well, maybe not, because they are specialists at doing one particular thing. Now, you can string together multiple tasks. That'll perform well, but it doesn't really meet that criteria of being an enterprise-grade application and data integration platform. Now, as I mentioned before, integration suddenly has become sexy. Everyone wants to get into the integration game, even a few data warehouse companies. You can certainly use the tools that are built into a data warehouse to build your own integration. Why? It's in their interest to allow you to build an API that ingests data to store it onto their data platform. But does it really give you the breadth that you require? Is it a lock-in? Does it give you the flexibility to move out of that particular data warehouse and move to another data warehouse, perhaps on a different cloud? So those are the kind of factors you need to think about. So we see ourselves as dramatically different. We feel that we give you that combination of being easy to use, plus you get that power to scale within your enterprise. And as I mentioned before, scaling to us is a multi-dimensional graph or a multi-dimensional axis. You can scale individuals, you can scale performance. And then these days, being a streaming architecture is quite important and handy if you're working with a bunch of cloud data and cloud apps that natively use JSON files. And so we have an architecture that natively is JSON. So let me tell you, in the words of one of our customers, this is a quote from Jamie Locks. He's actually out of Europe. He is the, as you can see for yourself, he is the VP of Integration and Application Development for Schneider Electric. And Schneider Electric is a big company, $30 billion with global supply chains. In his own words, he says, of all our integration tools, I asked my team and citizen developers, which vary from basic to experts, when he specifically asked them and challenged them to propose a more user-friendly solution than SnapLogic, no one could. Now, Jamie won't be live with us today, but he'll be available tomorrow. So if any of you are dialing in from EMEA, you might want to check it out and attend and have an opportunity to meet Jamie during our customer panel. So let's switch gears a little bit and get more into that architecture as I promised. A lot is being said today about modern data platforms. They give you a nice little slick platform. Maybe on the outside, it looks like it's a modern platform. But guess what? When you open it up, maybe not so much. Perhaps you have an older engine on the inside. As I said before, integration goes back decades. So the odds are you could be working with an old engine, some cobbled on software, and then, yeah, it'll have a nice, pretty exterior from a modern data platform perspective, but that platform will lack the ability to scale. Again, scale along those multi-dimensional lines, as we mentioned before, the number of users, right? The performance plus the breadth of the integration. And it doesn't count if it means scaling means you have to bring in an IT person who will do it for you. That is not what we mean when we say empowering users. So keep that in mind. So back to our architecture here. As I mentioned before, we're an event-driven architecture. Natively, we have a JSON documentation engine or document engine, and we basically allow you to gather stream data in document form, send it to the location. We give you, as I mentioned before, over 600 connectors, which could be packaged together almost like a Lego, snapped together to create the type of pipelines you need to move to the destinations you require. And obviously, if you do the numbers with 600 connectors, I mean, that is a very high number of permutations that are possible. So that you can build almost any pipeline you can imagine through SnapLogic, right? You can go from ground to cloud. You can move on-premises data to the cloud. You can go cloud to cloud if you prefer. If you want to do a traditional replication of data into the cloud and build out your analytics, you can do that. And if you want to take data out of that data warehouse and push it to another application, you can do that. You string together your different applications, and applications are the cornerstone of the business processes, the digital business that Beth was referring to earlier. And so that is how you're able to build the automated business processes. And guess what? We were the first to deliver such a technology, the event-driven AI native streaming architecture that enables all of the integration and automation capabilities that we've been talking about thus far. So that's a little bit about SnapLogic. I hope it gives you a sense of what we're capable of doing and why our technology is so popular with our customers. I hope that you will engage with them later in the day when we have customer panels, when we have breakout sessions. Be sure to engage. So now that is the technology we have. Let us tell you a little bit about where we've been over the last year and all of the new technologies that we brought to the market. And at this point, I like to first point out 4 key investment areas for us. First is application integration. This is where we focus on connectivity within the enterprise. The second area for us is API management. The features required to allow you to manage APIs, develop APIs, and certainly consume APIs if that's what you wish to do. But the bottom line is, again, about being easy. So we're all about simplifying API development and management. The third area of focus for us is data integration. No surprise there. We're all about frictionless data movement and transformation. And then the last area is about just ensuring our platform is enterprise ready, enterprise capable in terms of reliability and resiliency. I don't want to steal Mark's thunder. He'll talk a little bit about the reliability and integrity of our platform, but we're moving millions of executions per month in our platform. One such highlight over the last year, we introduced our SnapLogic Fast Data Loader. The Fast Data Loader gives you a pre-built pipeline. You go to our website, you sign up, and voila, you're in our platform. So this is especially designed for the, I would say, the data analytics user experience. So you choose among some of the endpoints that we have available. We have popular endpoints like Salesforce, we have Snowflake. On the destination side, we had Redshift, we have SAP Data Warehouse Cloud. So check out the product and give it a go. So we've introduced that over the last year. At the end of the day, it's all about accelerating data analytics projects to help you get started faster and potentially consolidate multiple sources. But not only the Fast Data Loader, just look at all the things we've done. Now, I would like to, at this point, introduce my colleague, Mark. Mark, are you on?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you great. Good to see you, my friend. So Mark is coming to us live out of New York City. So glad he's able to join. So I'm really going to turn it over to Mark because he and I work closer together, as you would imagine, right? But he and his team are really the power behind bringing a lot of the technologies to market in partnership with me and with my team. But Mark, why don't you go ahead and hit a few highlights with regards to the last year?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Michael. So just like you mentioned, I'm actually remote. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be in San Mateo, so I will apologize for the background noise in advance. Hopefully you guys won't hear that. But yeah, so I'm not going to go through all of the key features and functions. You can see we've been very busy over the last few months and releases. But just double clicking on the application integration, you can see there's kind of three areas that we focus on. So of course, continuing to connect the enterprise. So you can see there's a list there of some of the new snapbacks that we've introduced over the last few releases. And then as well as continuing to enhance the security. We all know how important security is. And so when it comes to the connectors, for example, we want to make sure that we have the most advanced capabilities there. So we've done some enhancements around Salesforce and Workday and ServiceNow. So those are enhancements that we've made on that front. And then as well as adding additional capabilities to the existing snapbacks. So there's a couple of examples there with additional feature capabilities that we added. Jumping over to API management. So we've put a tremendous amount of effort into our API management, and you've heard Michael refer to it already. So one of the key features that we added a couple of releases ago was what we call the design first API creation. So within SnapLogic, you can always build a pipeline and make it appear as a REST endpoint, an API. And then what this capability does is it allows you to work from the Open API specification and then have the system be able to build out that structure underneath. So that's really what that's all about there. We also have full lifecycle management now, so kind of jumping down to the bottom. So these are some of the two key capabilities that we've added with API management. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming slides. From data, just go back real quick, Michael, sorry. Just two things I want to highlight on data integration. So really what we've done there is we spent some time, we now support two design paradigms within the platform. So traditionally it's been all about ETL, which is extract, transform, and then load the data. So we've embraced the ELT paradigm. So you traditionally see this around more data and analytics capabilities, typically in conjunction with cloud data warehouses. So what you'll see there is we've been hard at work building out that capability, and essentially it's using the same visual design drag and drop paradigm to enable you to build out those transformation capabilities that ultimately will get executed within the cloud data warehouse. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then from the enterprise platform, it's all about scale, reliability, resiliency. So the thing I'll highlight here is the ability to elastically scale. So we do this in conjunction with Kubernetes, specifically a Helm chart. And then we also have what I refer to as custom metrics, which are SnapLogic application-specific metrics that allow you to have that fine-grained control when you scale out and scale in. So if we look at, speaking of reliability and resiliency, one of the things that we're very proud of, so we actually introduced this in the infrastructure in May, and then in the August and the November release, we were able to take advantage of this. So this, of course, is our zero downtime product releases. Historically, we used to have downtime and maintenance time. We used to put up the maintenance page, and you were unable to build pipelines during this time. But from, like I mentioned, from the August release forward, that no longer is the case. So all your tasks that are running, there's no delays or any impact to your running system. And so really the goal here is to get to a telco grade system, which you probably heard of the 5 nines reliability. So you can see from an integrity perspective, which means that the number of processes and pipelines that are in production at the release, we've almost hit 5 nines. So we're very proud of that. And hopefully you guys have seen that and are no longer impacted. We think that's good for everybody. I want to talk a little bit about SnapLogic flows. So SnapLogic flows is a way for us to further engage with line of business and empower them to be able to build out standard integrations. So this is a no-code tool that is a more guided experience. So you can kind of see in the animation in the background here, at its simplest form, a flow is nothing more than essentially a 3-step process. So we kind of guide you through the experience. We ask you to choose your endpoint and then choose your action. And then this is all runs on top of the intelligent integration platform. So all the features that you would expect, like schema on read and being able to get preview data, as well as things like suggest, so where we'll do real-time introspection of the endpoint. But what we've done is we've taken a step back and greatly simplified the entire process. So instead of having to worry about some of the underlying capabilities, we're doing things like having intelligent defaults. What's going on in the background now is we're talking about the ability to get the preview data and be able to build out that integration. But the other thing that we do is it also empowers IT to be able to govern and secure the capabilities. So we'll talk about another feature in an upcoming slide here, where if there's an endpoint that is governed by IT, they can make that available to the flows user, and they still maintain all that control that they need. So if we look ahead, and we're going to see what's coming next. So this is the feature I was just referring to. So if there's let's take like a data warehouse, for example, which is typically under IT control. And they don't want to make that broadly available for anybody just to be able to write to any table or schema necessary. So what they can do is they can use the intelligent integration platform, and they can build out a pipeline template or a snippet, if you will, which will, in the example that's going on behind the scenes, we're using actually a different endpoint, and we can also expand it to different endpoints as well. So what you do is IT will build and make that available to the business user. And then within the flows interface, we have a way to be able to reference that pipeline, and all the metadata and preview data that from that pipeline snippet is handed back into flows. And then the business user can pick it up from there and perform the mapping and any kind of target data that they need to be able to manipulate. So it's a nice way for to enable that collaboration between IT and the business, and still providing IT the ability to maintain control and governance over those APIs. Some of the other things, the one thing to note on SnapLogic Flows. So Flows is actually on a faster release cadence. So we actually release monthly. And so you'll see continued improvements. So here's an example of some of the endpoints that we've added over the last month or so. So we focused on continuing to build out the sales and marketing endpoints. So you'll see we added Microsoft Dynamics for Sales, as well as some of the real-time collaboration capabilities. So we already have Slack, and then adding Teams. and then of course Microsoft SharePoint for file collaboration. And now we're also getting into some of the ITSM domains, so such as ServiceNow, and you'll see things like Jira coming up in upcoming releases here. So these are all available now. So this is a good example here on how we perform automated campaign creation. So Jira is not actually available within the Flows interface at this point. It's one of the ones that will be coming up in the next release. But in order to reach out to that, so we have a business where they have, it's very email centric today. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to automate the campaign creation. And so traditionally what would happen would be the business would send an email to the head of the marketing ops, and then they would take that and then go into Salesforce and manually create the campaigns. And so they wanted to automate this process. So what they've done is in conjunction with Jira, so they created a Jira board where they now ask the users to go into and fill in the same information that they were placing in email. And then what happens is we've built a flow behind the scenes. So we will look, so IT has built the pipeline snippet, if you will, to be able to read from that particular Jira project and parse out the relevant information and pass that back to the business. The business then uses that pipeline information within the Flows interface to be able to map and transform the data that they need before writing that into Salesforce and creating that campaign. You can then also, once that campaign is created, you can then also be able to send out notifications via Teams or create the necessary channel, and then also be able to create the folder structure underneath with SharePoint. So hopefully this is a good example of how some of our users are using Flows to be able to automate business processes. So unfortunately, Lee Slezak, who is the VP of IT Architecture and Emerging Technologies at Tyson Foods, was unable to join us. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a short message from Lee, and he's going to give you his take on SnapLogic.
Hello, Craig and Michael. I really wish I could be there for the Enterprise Automation Summit. Unfortunately, my schedule changed, and so I'm coming to you today via videocast. I've been with Tyson about 4 years now. My role at Tyson, I lead our architecture and emerging tech groups, as well as our analytics space. So pretty much I have the full gamut of what technology we research, which technology we choose, and then how do we put it into play for analytics. And for those who don't know, Tyson is one of the largest food companies in the world. Most people know us for our poultry business, but what I tell you is that's one of our smaller businesses. So we're about 140,000 team members worldwide. Our revenue is around $43 billion this past year. As I mentioned, we've been around for 85 years. We operate largely within the United States. We have about 140 processing plants around the country, and we continue to invest and grow across Europe and Asia and other markets where we think we can provide just amazing food to feed the world. You know, I think enterprise automation is really the key to any IT organization's future as they look to scale and grow. I'm sure I'm no different than any other leader in an IT organization. I've got more work that is coming to my teams than we can possibly fulfill. And so leveraging automated solutions, moving to governed self-service technologies that allow us to drive decentralized integration across the environment will yield incredible benefits. Not only is it going to drive consistency across the platforms that get used, it helps us provide key capabilities that oftentimes are difficult to come by. Because one of the things that we see on a regular basis is vendors in the technology industry like to bypass the IT group, and they like to go for the sale with our business partners, which is fine. However, what I'd say is if we can put in place the right platform with the right structure and governance that gives the capability that they need, we can do all this work together in a single platform in a governed and scalable way.
So now let's look at some of the enhancements across the product areas. So firstly, we're going to focus in on API management. So what we have a view here, so over the last few releases, we've completely revamped the developer portal. So we now have enabled you to be able to perform self-service as well as full lifecycle management. So for example, this allows the API administrator to spend less time managing tasks such as creating accounts, discovering APIs. This is all enabled now through the developer portal for the users to be able to request their accounts. They can very easily discover all the APIs and get the information that they need about the APIs. They can also subscribe to those if they want to be able to use those. And then when they are approved, they will receive a notification all through the developer portal. And then, of course, we have the key management capabilities, so that when a key is refreshed, they will also get notifications. So these are some of the enhancements that are available now within the API developer portal. This is a view here from the administrator's perspective. So when a customer actually requests an account, as you can imagine, they will also receive a notification for approval or rejection of that request. They also have the capability to be able to remove users. So they have the full, as you would imagine, the full administrative capabilities over those APIs from within the SnapLogic platform. So one of the key things that we'll be announcing, or that we'll be adding in the February release, is management of third-party APIs. So you can think of those as custom APIs that you have in your environment. And what that will allow us to do is to be able to create a proxy for those, add those to the platform, and then be able to apply any of the policies that we have available, whether those are traffic management policies or security-based policies. And then, of course, be able to see the performance of those through the API dashboard. Another capability here is within the developer portal, allowing either the consumer or the developer to be able to click on a button and to be able to get responses back from the API. So this is traditionally done with third-party applications, something like a Postman, where you'd put in your request and look for the response. So being able to do this makes it just much easier for the consumer to be able to test and try out the APIs all from within the developer portal. So we have a quote here from Brian Murphy, who is the VP of Data at Aramark. So he says, leveraging SnapLogic to build an AI-embedded platform, we can enable our enterprises and give employees access to the data they need at their fingertips. Over 95% of our APIs are orchestrated by SnapLogic, empowering our employees to build applications on top of Marco with ease. So Marco is their internally built application, and it's all powered by SnapLogic. So it's a very good quote there from Brian. Brian is also available within our customer panel, so I would encourage you to join that session and then ask him any follow-on questions that you may have. From a data integration perspective, so here are some of the advancements that we are working on. So we mentioned building out our ELT capability, so the extract, load, and transform. So we continue down that path, and ELT BigQuery, Google BigQuery, is the last of the major cloud vendors, their cloud data warehouses that we'll support. So we support all the things that you would expect, such as like the security, so OAuth accounts, service accounts, and then some of the suggest capability that we have when you're building your pipelines. So being able to do that for tables and schemas, as well as some of the functions around SCD2, merge into, and a SQL execute snap. So in case you need to override and write some of your own SQL. So this is for ELT. Some of the other Snapback enhancements. So again, so what we're doing is around Microsoft Azure Service Bus, around Amazon SNS. So being able to support that event-driven architectures and continuing to build out those and integrate with those services that are offered from the major cloud vendors. And then from a Snowflake perspective, so being able to support Snowflake on GCP was one of the enhancements that we've made there. So all of this is available now. And looking ahead to some of, so this is also, so around the databases. So we see increasing demand for UDFs as well as stored procedures. So we've added those capabilities to the underlying databases, and you can see those represented here with Azure, SAP, Snowflake, etc., and Amazon. Those are all available now as well. So there's plenty more that we're doing. So it's not all just about databases and snaps and flows and making it easy. We continue to use Iris, which is our integration assistant. And we want to make things much easier to use. So whether that is being able to discover existing pipelines and existing configured snaps. So we now have a nice universal search that allows us to be able to discover those much more easily and reuse those when you're building out new pipelines. If you go to the next slide there, Michael. So here's some of the things that we're doing. So I just referred to AI-powered pipeline discovery. What we saw was people wanting to be able to reuse pipelines and reuse snaps, but not just wanting to drag a blank one from the canvas. They want to be able to actually have the fully configured pipeline or snap. So that's available now in the universal search. So it makes it much easier for you to be able to find and discover and be able to reuse those within your environment. We're also enabling or have enabled white labeling support. So we have a number of our customers who want to brand the interface. So being able to change things like the logo and the text on the page and then some of the headers. So that's something that we enabled now. And so we have the first version of our customization out there. We continue to build lots of other things like increasing the security, which is the second one, the Azure Service Bus, the SNS. So making sure that we are meeting our customers' demands as well as the market demands in terms of keeping up with event-based and real-time streaming capabilities. So all of this has been released and all of this is available now. So here's an example here of, we just referred to Amazon SNS and the Azure Service Bus. So this is an event-driven architecture that allows you to be able to not only connect to those services, but being able to use those events and being able to distribute those amongst various different applications downstream that will be able to receive those. So this is something that has just been released, and we expect we have a lot of customers asking for this, so we expect a lot of uptake on this particular capability. So the last couple of things I'm going to leave you with is more on the platform perspective. So we have native integration in the platform with GitHub, and we're going to continue to enhance our CI/CD capabilities. So one of the challenges that customers have, that there's some friction involved with moving assets programmatically between the different environments. So the slide here is kind of articulating how the typical software development lifecycle goes. You start off in a development environment and then move it to a test environment. And then once everything has been tested and we're complete, then we move it to a production environment. So we want to further automate that. So there's a couple of things that we'll be doing, but the things that are listed here on the screen are specific around being able to do things like project and project space management via public APIs. That allows us to be able to move the assets, create the necessary structure underneath, and then also manage those permissions via public APIs. So this is the first step in there, and we will continue down this path into more automated testing in a follow-on release. And the other area of focus for the February release is accelerating Ultra pipelines. So there are some circumstances where when you create and edit, some of the startup times are taking longer than actually what we would like. So we're moving more from a distributed architecture, a centralized architecture to a.
Hello, Craig and Michael.
Okay. And the result of moving to this distributed architecture, we fully expect to be able to have much faster creation times as well as startup times in the event that there's any changes. And then in a subsequent release, what we'll also be doing is focusing in on being able to more easily be able to develop and execute these pipelines. What we see is most customers will start from building out a pipeline, and then they get to a point where they realize that they want this to be more real time and always on. And there's a little bit of friction involved in some of those conversions over to an Ultra pipelining and making it Ultra pipeline compatible. So we'll have some visualization improvements that greatly enhance that capability. So hopefully that gives you a good view into not only some of the things that we've released over the last few releases, but also some of the key features that will be coming up in the next release. Michael, let me hand it back to you.
Yes, great. Hey, thanks, Mark. That was really great. It was really great for you to walk through that and give everyone a feeling for the direction of our product, what we've done in the past, what we're doing now, and where we see things going. So I want to thank you for your time to walk through that, and I'll pick up the conversation from here. So now that you have an understanding of SnapLogic, our platform, you get a sense of the development, the innovation we're putting into our platform. So now let's just sort of maybe take it back up a level and talk about how we see ourselves helping you achieve that transformative platform footprint that was eloquently referred to and described by Betsy and Jim. So I consider this the march towards democratization, because ultimately, as I've said before, and I'll continue to repeat this, it's about how we can empower teams, not just making IT teams more productive, but broadening the reach of the integration capabilities to more individuals within your organization. We all are aware of the current business climate today, in large part due to COVID, where personnel these days is hard to find. I know myself, when I went through a hiring process most recently, it took a very long time before I could find that superstar that I wanted to add to the team. So hiring is difficult. And so in order to allow you to operate fast and quick and be nimble, your integration platform really has to extend into all the organizations. So at the foundation, it has to begin with having a platform that delivers that intelligent data and application integration capability. So that's just key. You have to, at the foundation, have that. So next, we want to be able to think in terms of the automation. The automation, as you've heard from a number of speakers thus far, is really key to bringing forward benefits in terms of not only increased productivity, but higher reliability in terms of these processes, for the obvious reason that automation is certainly better than manual. And then with the automation, that's where you really get the leverage in terms of, I would say, business output for the headcount that you have. Now, a lot of what we've been talking about up to this point really plays into what we see ourselves pushing here, is the federated story, or the federation strategy, where you have a single platform. And again, not like I represented in that sort of that photograph where I cobbled together systems and with duct tape, and IT is not keeping the system together. IT in our world is providing contributed value that others can leverage, as opposed to doing the work for them. They're providing maybe new services that can be tapped into by the business group, while the business group works perhaps on the front end of the business process. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have individuals who are business individuals using our designer. In fact, given that we just recently introduced flows, we've achieved a high amount of productivity of individuals just with our standard drag and drop and snap environment. In fact, at our largest installation today, we have in a neighborhood of over 2,000 users empowered. So think about that, 2,000 users. You can't achieve that level of user scalability if a platform were difficult to use. And this is at one site. And a number of our customers whom you are able to speak to today through our customer panel, or through maybe a networking session as part of the virtual event today, perhaps you can ask those questions to see how they enable their organization. But through federation, a single platform that engages IT for security and governance, and then business users to build their own integrations, this is where we think the power really comes to play, which ultimately leads to the democratization, where it's integration for everyone. This is our vision. This is how we see the market moving, and this is where you'll see future innovations from us driving these capabilities for you. Now, let's go back to our architecture diagram. Now, I filled in a little more of the components that allows us to really define what we believe is the modern data architecture. So we think we're reinventing that notion of what a modern data architecture is about, right? is about being cloud native, and cloud native means having a streaming architecture that aligns with the document format that you're likely to incur when you engage with cloud applications. So that's really important. I mean, documents behind Salesforce, documents are behind Workday, and I can go on, and that is very key. So you also want to have that flexibility to be able to do ground to cloud or cloud to cloud. You want to have a single repository in your data warehouse or data lake or Dreamhouse, as I put it, because nowadays the nomenclature around data warehousing has gotten pretty funny actually, but very serious business nonetheless in pushing your data into a data warehouse. And if that's the route you want to go, we can give you traditional ELT or traditional ETL as well as more modern ELT approach. Now, it's all about endpoints, and then with the endpoints being supported in our platform, then you can build whatever business combination you can imagine. And again, it's for IT, it's for business, it's for everyone. So having purpose-built interfaces, we think, is the direction the industry will go, because now you'll have purpose-built interfaces for business groups, you have purpose-built interfaces for IT. The trick, though, is doing and delivering that through a leveraged platform, and this is where we feel we'll be able to excel and where we believe ultimately the industry is going. So that gives you a sense of how we see things at SnapLogic. One of the benefits to you with having Lee unable to attend live and another one of our colleagues who was unable to attend live, you're actually going to get a few minutes back in your day. So I want to thank you for taking time to engage in this conversation about innovation and where we think that the market is going with intelligent integration and automation, because again, from our point of view, enterprise automation is the future, and we see it being delivered for SnapLogic. So at this time, you're going to move into a break. So you have 30 minutes break, I believe, is scheduled, plus the extra time you're getting from us. So consider that a gift from me to you. Have a wonderful day.